See through to the sun, boy, better stay calm, be cool. Hey there, everyone. How you doing? It's me, Jay, your host for today, and this is one SAF, one step away from. Before we get into it, please, if you're listening on YouTube, take a second, like, subscribe, click the bell notification, and if you're listening on any other platforms, make sure to follow us. Okay, guys, how's everyone doing today?
Yeah, man. We're living hard.
Man.
All good, man.
Cool. All good around here.
Nice. So today we're going to tackle the COVID economy. So we're going to talk about the ups, the downs that's happened over the past 2 years. But before that, we're going to jump right into a game, a little icebreaker, yeah? So this is the rule, simple, higher or lower. Everyone familiar with higher or lower?
Indeed.
No.
Why do I feel like I'm at some sort of like Saw like thing, like you want to play a game type situation?
No, I mean.
That was season 1, boy. That was season 1.
So what's going to happen, I'm going to give you an opening statement, and then I'm going to ask you, is that quantified higher or lower than the next statement I'm going to give you, right? And the only rule is you all four have to answer unanimously before we can move on to the next question.
Come on.
Yeah? Okay. So I think we should be like some little theme music here. But yeah.
We can add that in, don't worry.
Right. So here we go. Currently, today, 6.2% of the world population is fully vaccinated. So that's 6.2%. Is 6.2% higher or lower than the current UK unemployment rate?
Lower.
6.2%. I think currently, I would say that's lower. Yeah.
Lower.
Because of the pandemic and the whole people losing their jobs, industries closing.
6.2% of the world population that's currently fully vaccinated is higher or lower than the UK unemployment rate.
Oh, wait a minute. So you're not talking about the percentage, you're talking about the numbers that the percentage represents.
Yeah. So you don't have to do the maths. Just simply 6.2%. Is that higher than the percentage of what they say the UK unemployment
go higher
rate
now,
is?
you know. I've got to go higher now.
I'd say
I'm sticking to low.
It's got to be lower.
I'll say higher.
Ugh.
You agree?
Now, I can say why. I can give some reasons.
No. S.
Lower.
Higher or lower?
I'll still say lower.
So what's it going to be? You'll have to decide unanimously.
Well, for the purpose
it's
of
3-1,
team
so
spirit,
unanimously it's lower.
for the purpose of team spirit, I'll go lower as well, right?
The correct answer is higher.
Man, you see,
6.2% is higher than the UK unemployment percent, which they say is 4.8%.
Yes.
Yep. So that one, you lot should have listened to K, which I know that's what he wants to hear.
Good morning.
Okay, second answer. So that 4.8% represents 2.6 million people unemployed in the UK. Is 2.6 million people unemployed in the UK higher or lower than the population of Jamaica?
Wait a minute.
Why?
Lower.
Why?
Wait a minute. Okay, Jamaica's actually a big island. In comparison to Barbados, anyway.
Barbados be small.
Yeah, small and people.
Don't go with that.
2.6 million is that higher or lower than the population of Jamaica?
Lower.
I say
Yeah, I
lower,
think
but
there's
if it's
more.
wrong, then I'm going to denounce my whole heritage. But hey,
answer?
Does it include vagrants?
It's the whole population, of course they included.
Okay, so they are people. Okay, so I have to say, yeah, I know. So yeah,
Obviously, there are vagrants throughout the world, not just.
thank you.
I'll have to say.
Other vagrants are available.
I have to say, 3.6. That's lower. Yeah, I think there's more population in Jamaica. Yeah.
Okay, you lot all agree?
Yeah.
Okay, that is correct. Jamaica
Boom.
has 2.7 million people, so
Wow,
roughly
just-
100,000 more than the UK unemployment rate.
Right.
That's
Yeah?
deep, man.
M
That's
keeps his
deep.
JA card. What happened to Bike?
Woo. Okay, so question number 3. Is 2.7 million higher or lower than the amount of COVID-19 deaths
Higher.
What, globally?
globally?
Mm.
Is 2.7 million higher or lower than the amount of people that have died?
I don't know. The USA
Of
just
COVID-19.
surpassed
I think it's
600,000
lower, you know.
alone.
I say lower. I say
I would
lower.
say lower, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that number's lower than the total deaths.
See, I would have said, yeah, I think lower because boy, that India one, man.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, and you
Yeah.
guys would be correct. Currently, it stands at around 3.8 million deaths.
Jeez.
Wow.
Okay.
Certain industries are making profit.
So
If you
hold
know
on a
him.
minute. So that last question. So
Mhm.
are you? Can you just go for just so I'm clear in my mind?
So
Because I said
the pop-
lower.
Yeah, so the population of Jamaica, which is 2.7 million, is
Mhm.
lower than the amount of people that have died by COVID-19, which is 3.8 million. So
Oh
you're-
wow. Okay. Even though I said lower, but I probably meant higher then. But boy, that's mad. I didn't know there was that many
That's
people.
deep, bro. Yeah, man. So if it was the whole island of, if COVID only focused on Jamaica, that would have been a desolate place right now.
done out. Okay, so is that 3.8 million? Is that higher or lower than the amount of people that lost their jobs as of April 2021 in the UK? Is 3.8 million higher or lower than the amount of people that lost their jobs April 2021 in the UK?
Actually lost their jobs, but just or
Not
It's
including
actually-
furlough scheme.
No, not including they actually lost their jobs.
So unemployment. Okay.
Unemployed, yeah.
I think 3.8 is higher than the amount of people who lost their jobs.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
Yeah.
Boom, you lot are correct again. So it is higher, and the number is 800,000 people as of 2021 April have lost their jobs due to COVID.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
a lot. That's a lot.
that's a
man.
lot. That is quite a lot.
Numbers there.
Okay, back to the numbers game. 800,000. Is that higher or lower than the amount of households that were made homeless in the UK?
Oh, I don't actually know about this, you know.
Was it 800,000 higher or lower than the amount of households that was made homeless?
That's higher.
I'd say,
lower.
I don't know, you know.
I'm leaning towards lower.
Yeah, so am I.
As in the
I would
answer,
say- I would-
answer
I
to
would
the
say
homeless
higher.
question. So there's less homeless people compared to the 800,000.
So what would that be?
No. Hold on. Jay, you said that were made homeless
Yeah,
because of COVID.
yeah.
I would say higher. Because then I remember that time they were saying about you can't really be kicked out for not paying rent or anything during that pandemic period.
Yeah.
So it can't be lower.
You want
Yeah,
to?
you're actually right there, T. You're actually right there.
Yeah, I would say higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say 800,000 is higher than those who were made homeless during the pandemic.
Ding, 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 ding. Correct again. So far, you guys are four correct, one wrong, which was the first one.
I wasn't.
So basically, 70,000 people or households, were made homeless. And a lot of those households were with more than one person. So you could think children, etc., etc. 70,000. Final question. 70,000, is that higher or lower than the number of businesses that were recorded between March 20 and March 2021 on Yelp in the USA? So it's 70,000 higher or lower than the amount of new businesses that registered to Yelp USA between March 20 and March 21.
I'll say it's lower. I reckon more.
I think I
Okay.
started with you there, S. I definitely think that since the COVID, financially, people have actually realized that they had to find new ways of income, and that included setting up their own companies and businesses. So I think there's been more than 70,000 businesses set up in the USA since COVID.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I agree.
Okay, boom. Right, you guys are correct. 487,000 roughly new businesses were registered to Yelp within the year span March 20 to March 21. So yeah, that's it. That's a quick little. I had so much more, but you could have taken up so much time. So yeah, that's it. What do you guys think about those figures and those statistics? Any of them stand out?
I actually kind of think that that's actually quite useful, really, because it's about the impact of such a short period of time and what's occurred since then. So in terms of what stands out, for me really was the amount of people that's died, allegedly due to COVID. So yeah, that's a massive populace of people. I guess you have to compare that with the birth rates as well to see how much it's really actually impacted the population of the world.
When you put it into perspective from a global, like, I think what it's shown actually is as much as and as devastating as it is with the deaths. Any death is not good, but the amount of emphasis and a lot of fear mongering that was put on this pandemic in terms of lockdowns and all this stuff, when you look at it in terms of percentages of their global population, it's tiny in comparison. I'm not disrespecting anyone that's lost someone through COVID, but the numbers itself in comparison to the global fear that they put into people, it might be similar. That'd be good to kind of find out actually what an average amount of flu deaths are globally to see if this was really as big as what many media outlets and governments 100%. Made out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the thing is, here's the thing. Obviously, you had other countries where they were disputing whether they were actually registering the real numbers. I remember in India that was quite populous when they were saying they're not declaring the right numbers. So we also have to take that into consideration. There's no, obviously we can't accuse anyone from not, doing what they're supposed to, but we'll be fools not to look at that to think, was that happening? Was that not happening? And then closer to home, I remember seeing something on the telly, and I'm sure I brought it up to you guys, and I was like, that's a bit suspicious, where they said, if you were diagnosed with COVID, right, and you recovered, and unfortunately you died within a 28-day, I'm sure it was 28 days period, they would still put it down as COVID. Now, you could have had cancer, right? And you're on end of life. You had COVID, survived it, and died of cancer, and then it will be put down as COVID. So anything, as long as you died, I can't put 100% on this. If you had an accident, I'm not sure how that would have worked, but automatically, if your name was already on that database, the moment you died, that's COVID.
And you're completely right there, as well. You're completely right. And I remember some news stories coming out as well with families saying that when they were signed off for death because of COVID, the families came out and said, hold up, they had all these other health complications for a significant period of time. And they know that they didn't die from COVID, they died from something else, but they were recorded as dying from COVID. So you're completely right there, T. I think that the figures have been fiddled with. And then the next question is why?
Why is it? Yeah, why is the question? I'm with you. Same sentiment as K, same sentiment as T. The thing that gets me is what they put on the death certificates, and whether you've been in close contact or you've been recovered from COVID or X, Y, and Z. A lot of people's deaths are still being put down as COVID, and a lot of elderly people that are in homes and that dying supposedly of COVID, but had a lot of ailments anyway, or maybe they might have been end of life, but they're still.
What do they call it? Comorbidities or something like that?
Yeah. So they would have been like the highest risk of when the government categorised everyone for vaccinations. They would have been the highest risk and more of a priority to get vaccinations. So I definitely think there's some kind of agenda going on there, but not to dampen anyone's mood or anything like that. Obviously, if you lose a relative or a loved one, that's the main thing about it. Definitely think there's something underlying there.
I think obviously we can't really answer that or why. I think that's something for the viewers and listeners to ever think about. It's all about doing your own research and start to piece bits and pieces of information that's coming through, some world news you hear, and whether it's people making money and not making money, whether there's contracts that's been awarded to people of close relations in politics. These are the things that are there to consider. And then hopefully you can come up with an answer, whether you think there was an agenda or not, or whether you think the numbers are legit or they're not. I think that's down to you, listeners and viewers, to make up your own mind. I think all we can do is say, okay, this is what we think has happened. This is some of the facts that we've got. And then it's down to you.
And I mean, we've seen examples of this so far during COVID, where governments would give contracts to seemingly their friends for, be it PPE or trade and stuff like that. So, I mean, who's winning and who's losing? Well, we will get to that later. What I wanted to do now is move and ask you guys a question. Have you lot seen since COVID like a rise in home, like entrepreneurs, people who are just starting to do stuff from their home, startup companies?
Yeah, massively so. Especially in my community, mainly food and products and things like that they've been going with. But you can see a massive uprise. Like, take one person in particular. She makes cakes. She was doing it pre-COVID anyway. But that's probably the best comparison for me to give it to. She was doing it pre-COVID, and whilst going through lockdown and so on and so forth, her numbers, her following grew, like exponentially grew. And with that, business becomes more profitable, and etc. But that there was a massive catalyst. Lockdown, pandemic was a massive catalyst to those numbers. I'm sure that she won't just be the only example. I'm sure there's more that follow that kind of path.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was trying to find those numbers related to the UK, but they weren't so readily available. So that's why in the questions I went for the US one. But yeah, from what I saw, there was a massive startup in people, home companies, and people doing arts and crafts, as well as, like you said, food. To further that question, do you guys think is it, who does it benefit? Is it a positive or negative for people to start becoming entrepreneurs?
If we're just talking about stats, according to the Office of National Stats for 2020, the industry that wasn't really impacted by COVID financially anyway was the information and communication industries. So basically, if you can do your job from home, if you can work from home, then your industry wouldn't be impacted as much as, for example, hospitality industries, pubs, clubs, restaurants, hotels. They were ones where it required people to come to you and that you offer a service once they come to you. Them industries really saw a big hit. I believe that the percentages was that there was a gross domestic product decrease of 19.8% between April and June 2020. So they were the industries that are really being focused on in terms of what is, I guess, is a unstable market and what a stable market is. I think crisis situations are not necessarily bad. So we looked at what remained stable, which is the information and communication department. We looked at what was unstable, which is the hospitality. Now, according to the Office of National Stats 2020, what grew? What grew was public admin and defense. And it states here that there was a consistent growth through the pandemic. Public administration and defense. Yeah, that consistently grew. So if we look at who's benefiting, I don't know anyone who can just start up a company right now and create a defense system that will be able to protect a country, etc. And then you have to look at who owns. You have to look at who owns the defense industry, who produces the items, who has the ability to sell, and who's buying them. Going into it as well, if we're looking at who's benefiting, yeah. Can everyone remember a person with a, let's just say his name, Sir Patrick Vallance? Does anyone recognize that name?
No, to be
It
honest.
does.
No.
It does ring a bell, but I'm trying to think. It does ring a bell.
Right. So Sir Patrick Vallance, he resigned from being Boris's chief scientific officer. You know that guy that
Yes,
walked out with that guy that walked out
Yeah.
with Boris and said, "Oh, we're going to be doing this and that, and we recommend this, and we're going to be using this company for this vaccine, and blah blah blah." He resigned. Why? Because it came out in September 2020 that he had 600,000 shares in GlaxoSmithKline, which is a leading pharmaceutical company that he happened to recommend to take the charge in producing the vaccines. Oh, I believe they call that a conflict of interest. Yeah, I believe that's also part of hedge funding. Yeah, when you are part of a group of people who set up a company just to specifically invest in a company, and when you do it through hedge funding, actually, I won't go into. I might come into that.
Yeah, no.
I might come into that later. Yeah, but that's who it benefits. It benefits people like him who have insider knowledge to make business moves and investments based on an economy that they can influence by way of what? I believe M said it earlier, fear mongering. While you're secretly getting your company into quell that fear. How does fear mongering work? Well, you create the fear, or let's replace the word fear with terrorist. You create the terrorist.
Whoa.
And then once you do that, once you create the terrorist, that means there's a problem. Once you create the problem, then you come flying in to solve the problem, which makes you what? The hero.
The hero.
But all the while, the hero is earning money off this so-called falsified, or I won't say falsified, but I guess it can be controversial pandemic or plandemic, as we said in season one step away from. Listen up if you haven't already. So that's who I believe. Not even that's who I believe. That's what factually, that's who it benefits. He had investments in a company. He had a position of power where he could influence who was going to take charge of the vaccines. He's made a killing off this, and he got found out through conflict of interest, and he gets to run off into the sunset with his money.
That's deep. I done research on him. Not much you could really say about people like that, really. But I want to delve deep into more the people who are trying to do this thing at home. So on one hand, you have someone like Sir Vallance who could do that. But then on the other side, when it comes to people, for instance, there was a lot of food people that was birthed through this pandemic, people trying to sell food. And then it came out that the government or police was looking at them because they didn't have the right permits or they didn't have the right accreditation to do these things. And a lot of these people were the people that lost jobs. But yet when they tried to do something alternative, then they found even more obstacles in their way. Like, what do you think about these things happening?
Yeah, well, with regards to, I've two minds on that one. If you're trying to do your own thing and trying to have an entrepreneurship of your own, then there's still things that you need to follow. You know what I mean? You can't just do things willy-nilly if you want to be legit and if you want to be credible. You know, there's certain things that, regardless of even if there's not a pandemic or not, there's certain things that have to be done. But going back to your original question in terms of people working for, or people starting up their own thing, who benefits from it? Well, I think the pandemic has allowed people time to think for themselves, rather than be in their 9 to 5 where they don't have time to think. All they know is to do, because you wake up, your alarm sets you off. You know all the things you've got to do to get to work that 9 to 5, come home and rinse and repeat. This gave a lot of people, even people working from home, time to actually think about themselves and what their capabilities are, which is brilliant. Because if everyone gets, I think for anyone who gets time to think and sit down and actually map out what do I really want to do for myself, I think that's a beautiful thing. However, so that will benefit those people because they realize, actually, I don't need to be confined to this 9 to 5 job or this mundane job or a job that you don't like, or I can do something that's maybe more creative for myself, but also it benefits me and I can make money from it. But then that has an impact on companies where they may lose people they may lose employees because they are starting to do their own thing. So the companies and the corporations are not going to be happy with it, because like, well, we're losing all our people, even though we're kind of providing them access to work from home, but for some reason these people are leaving. So the corporations are going to be knocking on the government's door to either subsidize or to kind of at least kind of reimburse what they're losing out on. So as much as if I, for instance, if I start my own food business, that ultimately is going to help rebuild the UK economy one way or the other, in terms of commerce, in terms of people buying and selling and stuff like that, and buying ingredients. That's going to help the economy, because that's probably the government's number one priority, is to rebuild the economy. But the profits are not going into the usual suspects, if that makes sense. The profits and that extra bit of money is actually going back to the people. So I think it's good and bad, because there's going to be people that are happy that people are doing their own thing, but there's going to be a lot of corporations and people higher up that are not happy because they don't have that full control over those people anymore.
Yeah, totally agree. T?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what Em's just said there. So I guess the only thing I wanted to add on that was when you said about those people that started their businesses, whether it was cooking or baking, they started having issues with the local authorities or the police looking at them because there wasn't any proper licensing on or any inspections on hygiene and stuff like that. There's two sides to it, like Em said. Obviously, there's a safety concern, but also there's a financial concern. Because here's what happens when you run your own business. Potentially, you'll pay less tax, yeah, than someone who's employed. The government takes, whether it be 15, 20, 28%, 35%, depending on your tax band. They take that straight away before you even touch that money. And that's what keeps this country running, amongst other things. But when you're now self-employed, I will pay you at the end of the year, after I've deducted every other expense I could think of on that. So I could make 100 grand a year. Yeah. If you're employed right now, Jay, you make 100 grand a year as employed, and I'm self-employed, I make 100 grand a year. Who do you think pays more tax, me or you?
Yeah, me with the full-time job.
Right, there you go. So it leaves a massive chunk in the government's budget where they have no control on how much money they're going to get. And that's an issue.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm so grateful. You guys actually taken in the same direction that I wanted it to go from this question. I wanted to explore not only the double-edged sword in terms of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, but like Em said, if you want to run your own business and you want to be credible and legit, you have to do the right things. You have to go register your business. You have to go get your food and hygiene certificate. I mean, I believe you could do that online.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, it's important, especially as we are one SAF, and kind of aiming to the people that have the one SAF DNA. That's a phrase that I want to use moving forward. If you've got the one step away from DNA, then you'll understand. Like and we'll talk about this in future episodes, I'm sure. But we don't. If we are trying to kind of build certain things, we don't want it to get shut down. And there's certain hoops that we have to jump through to kind of just be on an even keel anyway. So it's vitally important, as much as yes, you can do a little quick thing and post it on social media and you get a bit of a buzz. Do things the right way, because we're up against it anyway. So don't create any kind of
Don't create any more hurdles
for us to be shut down.
for yourself.
So that's
100%.
very important.
100%. S?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just going to back what Em said. Exactly what Em said, to be fair. Like, there's so many hurdles that we have going forward anyway. So come correct where you can, because there's no smoke without fire. Because once the money's coming out of certain people's pockets, they're soon going to want it back. So, but you don't want to get caught in that haywire.
Definitely.
100, man. And just to say as well, for myself, seeing the amount of drive that people have to want to do better, I think that's such a beautiful thing to see. And it's also about self-confidence too. A lot of people are stepping into a realm where they normally wouldn't have gone into, and that's just following on from my point when I said that all crisis situations are not necessarily bad. Change isn't necessarily bad. Of course, what's occurred in terms of people's health and that is bad, but I'm talking about the change of environment financially because of COVID, which is the focus point of this podcast. It's encouraged people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And as a consequence of that, they're learning more about the economy, and getting financial freedom. There's not just one form of earning money by working for someone. People's minds are changing to the sense of, hold up, I don't need to work for someone. I can work for myself and I can give something a try. So I think that's just such a positive thing to hear and see, that people are actually stepping out of their comfort zone in order to benefit themselves in future and actually create some sort of legacy for their family name, for their children, for themselves, and get some form of independence. So it's such a positive thing to see, and I encourage more of that.
Yeah, same. I believe that's one of the most positive things that's come out of this pandemic, is the rise in entrepreneurs. Okay, so another thing that has been crazy during this pandemic is the rise of the trading apps. Okay, this we can do a whole podcast on. So the usual phrases for another podcast later, but I wanted to touch on some things. This during the pandemic, were you guys aware of what the scandal on Robinhood and GameStop?
Yep.
Indeed.
Yep.
Yeah, that was basically a show of normal people coming together, using the internet, social media, coming together to overthrow a big boy corporation who was hedging against them, or where their interests lied, and they completely decimated the opposition.
Can I just explain, if you don't mind, Jay, for the people, in terms of if they don't understand what hedge funding might be? So just give a brief. Of course, do your own research. But hedge funding, in terms of what Jay said, so they're hedging. So what it is, it's a bunch of people who are accredited investors. So you have to follow a set of rules and guidelines in order to become an accredited investor. Me, you, and anyone else can become an investor right now on these investment apps and such, and we can start to buy stocks. But in order to be a hedge funder, you have to be an accredited investor, which usually means that you are coming from some high corporate level, which means that you have a certain amount of expendable money because of your class, because of your earning power. Now, what it is that a group of them set up a limited company. Limited. If you don't know what a limited company is, it means that your actual personal assets are protected. It means that they can't be taken. Once that's established, you actually trade under a different rule set than public traders. So if me and you were to trade on stock, we would have certain rules and regulations that hedge funders don't have to follow, which means that their money is less risked. They have less risks with their money. If we saw our stock decrease, it means our actual money will decrease. And if we withdrew our stock, we would get less money for that stock sold. Hedge funders have different rules where their money is less at risk. Okay, so it's a group of people who already have financial backing, who already have power and influence over the stock market itself, who are creating a limited company to invest in stocks. And then what's going to happen with that is that because of their power and their financial resource, they then get to manipulate the stock market. And this is where it becomes dark and it becomes deep. And that's the reason why they go into options such as shorting. And shorting is actually betting against a company. So I want your company to fail because it means that I will then gain money. So that's what hedge funders are.
And that's what they done with GameStop. They hedged their bets against GameStop in the hopes that GameStop would crash and they would make a lot of money. But the internet and really and truly normal everyday citizens with a bit of know-how came together and toppled that, which I think we haven't seen something like that in a long time. where people just came together to do one specific thing like that with that much impact.
No,
And it
it's
made-
still-
you know what the
question
funny
is
thing
the
is?
environment that we're in at the moment.
it's still going on, man.
Through
It's still
that
going
year,
on.
exactly that those symptoms have carried on, and that's we go back to what Kay and Em was saying about the new environment that we're in now, the new world that we're in now. People are thinking, yes, I don't have to actually have to work for someone. I can work for myself and create my own room, my own space, build my own table. Dipping in again to that DNA.
Definitely.
The funny thing is as well, I just want to say, just as a little side joke, it's funny that it happened to Robin Hood because the term Robin Hood is about taken from the rich, the bureaucrats, and given to the poor, given to the people. So it's quite funny that the people, I believe it was Reddit that it was mainly used. The people decided to revolt against Wall Street, against the hedge funders, and to go against their short in investing. So what it meant was that the hedge funders, who normally always win, lost this time, and a lot of everyday people became millionaires. Yeah, man, that's just classic Robin Hood stuff, isn't it? So why is Robin Hood complaining? That's what Robin Hood's supposed to do, right? But when Robin Hood didn't get their cut, you know what I'm saying? Well, yeah, that's what it is. Another thing that was crazy is also Bitcoin hit its all-time high in May of this year. And that was another thing that boomed throughout the pandemic. Like, T, what do you think about this whole cryptocurrency investment?
Yeah, a lot of people make money. Same thing that happened. But again, when you talk about manipulating these markets, and one announcement by someone powerful absolutely plummeted it.
Yeah, don't even.
Right? Just by someone saying, by the way, my company is no longer accepting cryptocurrency. That's it.
That's it. Quick like that.
He wiped. A lot of people I saw on social media up in arms crying, I lost 100,000, I lost millions. This is what happens. And it goes back to what Kay said about when you're a hedge fund, you create a limited company, you manipulate these stocks when you've got inside information. Well, sometimes you don't even have to have inside information. So am I too fond of Bitcoin? And not really. Because in my eyes, it's artificial.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do a podcast.
No, we definitely have to do a podcast. Anyone else want to mention anything quick on this before we shoot off to the next part?
It kind of shows to me that this is a speculative market. I guess this will definitely be another podcast, but stocks aren't what they used to be. I guess I can say in a short, just keeping it succinct. Stocks aren't what they used to be.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, to be fair. And as much as there's been a lot of gains from everyday people, the activity of and the influx of the COVID / pandemic trading has created a lot of volatility, more so than there's always going to be volatility in stock markets and stuff like that. But this has enhanced it even more. And that does create a lot of kind of chaos. Even if someone who wins like it or kind of earns a lot of money from like the GameStop situation, there's a lot of intricacies that can actually affect a lot of people around him, or even that one particular person if they are not used to having that amount of money. But yeah, it's definitely for another podcast. But it's not all as much as people have made a lot. That has an impact. It will have an impact within the economy itself, for sure.
Okay. So I got another question for you guys. Yeah. Who knows the current population of the world right now? Or a wild guess.
About 7 billion.
Cool.
6.5.
7.8, roughly.
Oi, jeez.
Yeah? 7.8.
Close, you know.
You better play the lottery, fam. You better play the lottery.
Since January the 1st, 2020, Elon Musk gained $144 billion in wealth. That's only
Say that again?
from January the 1st, 2020. Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, which is what he owns, amassed $144 billion in wealth.
That's not even money anymore, is it?
So he can afford to give everyone in the world what, $100 or more.
Yeah, and that's not even really touching it to me.
Every person in the world, here's 100, here's 100, and that's just
crazy.
that's just his profit since the 1st of January. Mad, right?
See, this is what we spoke about in season 1, isn't it? When someone has got this much money. Because here's the thing: we all have goals that we say, okay, in 10 years I want to make this, I want to do this, right? When you've made that much money, what's your goal? What's your next target?
Well, to go to Mars, isn't it?
You're going to be playing God, aren't you?
I think that's for
Like
another podcast, you know.
To go to Mars.
No, we mentioned it, but yeah, just a thought. It's something to think about.
That's a deep one, you know. I'm serious to you. Like that one there, that question alone, when you've made all the money that you want or need or could ever imagine, what else? Like, what are you gonna want next? When you've got everything, what are you gonna want next? And that's it. Oh, yeah, you know what?
Population. You want to control population. That's what will be next.
So
sorry, Dave.
Yeah,
Dave,
go on.
Let me come right back in there, right? M's just triggered me. Right. Now, if we look at everything that we're discussing right now, right? Park it to the side. Go and watch a documentary about wildlife. Go and watch a good documentary about Sir David Attenborough. Yeah. At the end, listen to anything that he says. The last thing they say. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm coming like the Riddler from.
That's one to go check. So
I know exactly what you're on about.
So from January the 1st, 2020, Elon Musk was number 1 with 144 billion. Jeff Bezos, second with 86 billion. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they were from Google with over 40 million. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, 35 million. Amazon, Mackenzie Scott, 25 billion. Bill Gates, Microsoft, 22 billion. Dell Computers, Michael Dell, 19 billion. So those are the people that earn the most.
Jay, all these were billions, isn't it? Because you said millions as well.
Yeah, these are all billions. These are all billions. These are not even a million years. These are all
right.
the top billies.
Right, Jay, I'm sorry. Just from that list you mentioned, oh man, I think we need to like record another podcast straight after this, man. Look at where they're all situated in the world. You named all these people, but where are they situated?
In America.
Right, there's something going on here. That's not coincidental. That's not coincidental.
5% of wealth in the world, like all them men that you just listed, they're the top 5% of wealth in the world.
Yep. So these are some of the biggest winners during just not only in general, but just specifically during the pandemic. These are the people that profited most during that time, on paper anyway.
Who's allowing them to profit?
Yeah, that's why I said on paper anyway. These are the ones that they tell us about. So, who do you guys? So, seeing that these are the biggest winners, who do you guys think are some of the biggest losers of the pandemic?
Those that own the local coffee shops,
the working class.
Those that have to go out and grind meat off bones to put food on the table. Those that are still paying for orders on the Amazons and the Facebooks and the versions of the world. You're still paying your bills to keep the Wi-Fi running. But they're the biggest losers because they ain't getting the money coming in because they lost employment. Yet they're still paying bills.
Yeah, I was saying, for me, it's the working class. If you didn't have any savings in the bank, right, during this whole pandemic, for me, you would have taken the biggest L.
Yeah, you would have had a tough time. You would have had a tough time.
Right? Because right now, even though we might be nearing out of the pandemic, things are back to kind of semi-normal, people are going back to work, you're still in deficit. Because guess what? When you wasn't working, your bills were not just stopped and then, yeah, don't worry about it. They were still piling up. So right now you're still in minus. Yeah, the country could have reopened on the 21st of June or 21st of July. It makes no difference to you. You are still in minus. So you lost.
Oi. Ems?
There's two sides to that, really. I watched a video / podcast where it spoke about, and I'll add the links in the description. It was called COVID-19 Impacts of the Pandemic on Equality or Inequality or Equality. And it highlights what the pandemic done in terms of what existing inequalities there were in the world. So some of the highlights were savings and debt, housing, and people that are on the state benefit system. What it also done was exacerbated, sorry if I said that word wrong, some of the inequalities that currently existed. So people's income, gender, ethnicity. And there was one graph that I saw that's it spoke about the people that were the highest earning people. They were more likely to be working in sectors that were able, and I think Kay kind of mentioned something slightly similar. These people were more likely to be able to continue working in the pandemic, meaning that there's a section of people, because of certain inequalities that they currently are living, they're going to be impacted by it. And like T said, if they didn't have savings or things like that, they're going to take an L. Where there's another sector of people where their life kind of continues. So there's people that were able to continue with their life and maybe even save more or actually earn a bit more money. And there's other people that are actually getting further and further away from what they're already earning or being able to kind of earn. So what this actually done, from my opinion, but also some of this video kind of backed it up. It kind of shows that actually it was started to separate a lot of, I guess, classes or just people, especially in the UK. It started separating people even further. So as much as there are a lot of people that felt that the pandemic brought a lot of unity in terms of people doing quizzes on Thursdays or clapping outside on a Thursday night, all of that stuff that was happening, when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, when it comes to finance, because that's a large part of everyone's life, there was a lot of people that were actually parting further and further away from each other. Things like trading apps and stuff like that, that's like the middleman, because actually it gave people a chance. But yeah, I think there was a lot of things that actually really highlighted where people are socially and economically, especially in the UK.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I believe what they call it, the pay gap, and I guess this is the financial gap. It got bigger. You know, like when you have a crack in something, whether it's some metal work, and it gets cold, and then it gets warm again, then it gets cold and it gets warm again, and without any tension being put on that crack, it will slowly get bigger. That's almost like the financial gap that goes on in society here, and it's that same old adage, isn't it? The richer get richer, the poorer get on poorer. If you already have, then you tend to get more. If you don't have, then you don't tend to get more. And I believe this COVID situation shone a big light on this circumstance. And I also believe that's why there's been moves by so-called power structures to actually disencourage people from doing these self businesses and these to be sole traders and limited companies and such, and stepping out of the box. Because believe it or not, and this is my own personal opinion here, you are needed to be on the bottom rung. That's the only way. The only way you can get a differentiation is if there's a difference. Now, if you close that gap towards those who want that differentiation to stay in place, believe me and you, they will do something about it. They will use their power and their influence to keep you where you are because you're profitable. You might not feel you have any value, but believe me, there's people who get rich off the welfare system. And I'm not talking about those who are receiving benefits. I'm talking about those who set it up. They get grants for this stuff. They get grants for accommodation. They get grants for giving out vehicles to people who are either disabled and such. They get grants to people who are unemployed. They get funding when homeless people are on the streets. Why? Because then the council sets up what? A homeless initiative team, which means there's more grants given to the council, which means whoever is running their council gets that money to them first, and they get to funnel it out as they see fit. So when you see people in destitute situations, whether by health, whether by economics, whether because of the pandemic, which is a mixture of health and economics, people are making money off you. It's that simple. It's that simple. The NHS, people think, oh, save the NHS and save it. They got pumped full of money because of this. Pumped full of resources and assets. The private services got pumped full of resources and assets. And if you really want to know who made money, funeral services. People make money off destitute situations. That's the fact. And if people are making money and getting rich, do they really want to stop what's making them rich? I guess that's a question I'll leave people to answer.
And just to chime in on that and actually give a real example that's happened, and using NHS as an example. Now, I don't know if you guys remembered, probably a year ago or over a year and a half ago, a lot of NHS, especially nurses, they had private limited companies, right? Which meant they would work as agency and get paid more than the NHS was willing to pay, right? They put a stop to that. They shut down all limited companies and said, nope, we've got to stop this because it's unfair, it's on this. That was before the pandemic hit. Now the pandemic hit, and what did they do to the same nurses that they were saying we're right at the forefront of this, that we're coming out every day and clapping outside? How much did they get as a pay rise? So that just shows you, like Kay said, if they realize, okay, people are making money here, we need to put a stop to this because it's closing that gap, they will act and act quickly.
Yeah, it's the taxpayers. It's those who work in the 9 to 5s, those the self-employed workers who pay their tax. They foot in the bill, and they're the ones and the government is using them to make this gap bigger. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not really taxing the rich to pay for these services. No, it's the normal everyday working people who are going to feel the strain more. So they're going to go from middle class, and then because of this, they're going to automatically get bumped down to the lower middle class, and so forth and so forth.
But not only that though, the other thing we're forgetting, like you said, it's the taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
So the more tax we've got to pay, that means the retirement age is going to go up, right? We both know that. We all know that. The retirement age is going to go up, which means by the time we get to retire, especially our generation, we're probably in our 80s. We're not going to see our payments that will come out, right? Which means 5 years and you're done. That money is not going to go down to your next of kin, right? That money is gone. The government is like, thank you very much. What, you retired and you had 2 years to live? Yeah, we paid your pension and that's it, it's done.
And the wickedest thing is, those who are making those decisions, by the time you reach that age, are going to be dead and gone, and their families are going to be set for life.
And that's
for another
subject
podcast
to talk about. That is the subject to talk about for the listeners out there. That we need to educate ourselves on financial security, financial freedom. will we have the same privileges our grandparents have had by even being able to draw for a pension by the time we reach those ages? That's another podcast there. That's an educational one right there.
Yeah, for real. Before I segue to the final question I have for you guys, I had a thought. Really and truly, throughout this pandemic, those that are used to live in poverty really didn't see much difference in terms of the impact on their lives. If you're used to living poor, if you're used to being on the breadline, COVID-19 really, really didn't change much for your life, really. What do you guys think about that?
Listen, I was raised this way. Yeah, if you ain't got it, you make do. If you ain't got a horse, you ride a cow. So some people are gonna ride this storm a lot better than others. Some people are losing out and screaming. Others are thinking, okay, cool. Let me hold up my head, say stuff with my chest, and move through this. The difference is that to me, they are two lanes. You're either gonna put up, shut up, and get on with it, or you're gonna moan and become a social media sensation with all these TikToks and all these little mini videos that you're gonna do and get a little clout after that. They're your lanes.
Just so thinking about what we discussed today and who we are, the one SAF mentality. How did this impact being one SAF? How did this impact being one step away from that negative outcomes? Or did it make sure that we were several steps away from a negative outcome and closer to a positive outcome? What do you guys think finally on where the pandemic has left the one SAF mentality?
That's a very good question there, Jay. And I think for one SAF, in terms of for the general people, I think it has actually I guess it's planted a seed into people's minds, because I was talking about previously about people starting up their businesses and how it's a positive thing. It's positive to see this change in people. So I actually think that it has actually planted a seed of confidence and taking risks, in terms of positive risks, and trying to upskill yourselves, and also to become independent of what you believed was the only way to sustain yourself. I'm sure people have heard of Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Now, one of the quotes here falls nicely, falls nicely with this situation that we're talking about here. It's quite a simple quote. It's, in the midst of chaos, there's also opportunity. That's what I leave people with. And that's what we have also done ourselves. We've seen the chaos, we've been in the midst of it, and now we're seeing opportunity.
I agree. I think, especially for those with the one SAF DNA, you've only got to look at how many of them, like how many men them have Forex or on Forex trading or crypto or just normal trading. Like, the access to things like that shows you that actually you are getting one step closer to positive outcomes. On top of that, mentioning what Kay said, other than the actual pandemic itself, during the pandemic, what was probably the biggest thing to happen during that time? And it would be the George Floyd situation. And once again, with people with the one SAF DNA, there was a strong feeling, there was a strong urge, there was a kind of change in mindset for a lot of people. Whether it be a coincidence or not, it happened during that time. So I actually think, even for like myself, I've been able to kind of work from home, but those hours, that's just using commuting hours, like going to and from work, finishing work and coming home, even gaining those extra hours back in my life because you're working from home has enabled me to kind of just be more freedom, or give me a couple more hours freedom to kind of express myself and do my own things that I'm interested in. So I definitely believe, as long as you've got the right mindset, this definitely would have been a time where it's given us a route to actually getting those steps closer. So yeah, I totally agree.
For me, the experience, it's made me better. I do believe. I think over these last 18 months, if you've not been able to learn just one thing about yourself, yeah, just one thing, then I think you've not took that opportunity. Like Kay said, in the midst of chaos, there's opportunity. And if that one piece of learning can make you better than what you were 18 months ago, I think you're closer to positive outcomes.
Definitely. T, anything in closing?
No, man. You know what? We've said pretty much everything, and I agree with my boys here, man. This for me was a wake up call, and exactly what M said: the George Floyd situation, pandemic, where we were, and how we got affected by it. Because let's be honest here, the majority of our 1SAF DNA people were in the industry that got hit the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be in care homes, in hospitality, whether we got hit the hardest. And if you didn't get this wake up call, I don't know if you get another one as big as this.
I hear that for real. Yeah, I pretty much echo everything you guys have said today. There have been a lot of positives to take away from it. Increased confidence, creativity, ingenuity, entrepreneurship amongst our brothers and sisters. Like you said, T, a lot of us also faced a lot of hardship via loss of jobs, etc. So, like I said, it's been a double-edged sword, but as usual, we're used to being long-suffering and getting to the finish line no matter what. So I would really like to thank you guys for this discussion, like, and taking part in the game and everything like that, because I just wanted the listeners to understand that these stats equate to something. Do you understand what I'm saying? 2.6 million people unemployed is nearly the same amount as the population of a Caribbean island. There's food for thought in there. So before we go, please make sure, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you know every time we post. If you're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Music, make sure you give us a follow, share with your friends, comment, like, all of that. We're 1SAF. I'm Jay, your host. And until next time, take care.